We know what you've come for, and now we're going to give it to you. You're listening to the No Such Thing podcast.
Okay, so we have Dave Wilbanks again on the show. And Dave, I have to say you're my only celebrity that I have regularly on the show.
Celebrity? How do you define celebrity?
Just kidding. So we wanted to talk about, well, recently we were I was down in Oklahoma, and I paid a visit to your neck of the woods, and we went to the Kiamichi Mountains, and we wanted to talk about that a little bit. I don't even know where to start. I got there really late, and we ended up driving for what seemed like about 2 hours or something.
Well, it is about an hour, little better than an hour from my house, not by much. Of course, you drove a lot further because you had to drive up from Dallas to Ada, and then from Ada to my house, which that's a 40-minute drive, and then another little over an hour to get to where we camped in the Kiamichi Mountains.
Yeah, that's why it seemed longer for me. I'd just been driving all day.
No, yeah, it was a long day. Very long day for you.
And that's probably why I slept in the next morning for so long. But we'll just talk about the first night. We got there really dark, and I was like, oh my God, how do you stay here by yourself? Because it's out there. Like we drove on a dirt road for how long?
Well, we got to, I'll not name the town, but from the nearest town, it's 20 miles. And most all of that is dirt road. So it's it's a good, through those kind of roads, a good 30 minutes drive from the nearest town. And it's, as you saw for yourself, it's pretty rugged road, especially when we get off the main road to go down into the area where we camped.
Now, in the winter and stuff, if there's like really bad weather, would you be able to make it even down there, or would that be still pretty packed down that road?
Well, if you had 4-wheel drive and stuff, you'd be fine, I think. Now, when I first went to that location that I took you to, if you remember now, there's like a little low water bridge that crosses a creek that's pretty well maintained. Now, the first time I was in that location was 20 years ago, and there was no low water crossing there. You just had to, you really had to have a 4-wheel drive to get across it then. And if it had been washed out in the rainy season, you would not have pulled it off. So right now, even in the worst of weather, if you have 4-wheel drive vehicle, you can get down there pretty easily.
Yeah, if that was up here in the winter, you'd have no chance. It would just be like 3 feet of snow for most of the winter.
Yeah, we don't. Very, very seldom do we get 3 feet of snow down here, especially the last several years. So snow is generally not the issue. If you have an issue on the roads down here, it's most of the time ice is the biggest problem.
Now, do you want to talk about that area a little bit where we went to? I mean, you've been going there for 20 years.
Right. When I first went down there, and a neighbor had approached me, and this guy breaks horses, and he had a friend that breaks horses and liked to go into this area and ride his horse and camp and such, primitive camper. I made a video about this as well, but he had approached me and said this guy had seen a Bigfoot, basically, is what he was describing, walk out into the trail in front of him up there about 50 yards ahead of him. And as it came out into the trail, it saw him, turned around, and ran back into the trees. So, like I said, that was in 2001, I believe, 2001 or 2. So it was about 18 years ago, if you want to be
he didn't know what a Bigfoot was.
No. As a matter of fact, when I had my friend introduce us and he talked to me about it, And this individual I'm talking about that saw it, I went to his house. He doesn't even have television and stuff. And he lived very remote himself. I remember him asking me after he described it. He said, "What are they? Are they apes or something?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "We call what you saw Bigfoot," and he described it as being, walking upright like a person and covered in black hair. And he just saw it. He kind of walked out of the road in front of him, or the trail, walking away from him, looked over his shoulder and saw him, and just got off the road. He only saw it briefly like that. So anyway, I got directions actually took a person from the community where I live that goes down there from time to time, guided me down there the first time, and didn't see anything. But that's how I found the place. And now there are things that would happen as I took the person that's been my kind of research partner and longtime friend named Brian Baker went with me in the spring of 2003, and we heard several vocalizations, kind of a whistling noise as we were hiking along the creek fishing, and we would hear it, and it was walking. We thought it was a person that was pacing us in the brush. We couldn't see them, but it'd make these really weird whistling calls. They would start high, go low. I mean, not like a bird whistling. And if we would walk up towards where it was, we'd hear it retreat further back into the brush. And we kind of thought it may be a person, even though the whistling just didn't really sound right. But later that night at camp, after we'd went to sleep, it was after midnight, we were awakened by the sound of a large rock bouncing off a tree just outside of our camp. And that was about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning that happened. And we actually found the rock, and it was basically a boulder. It'd probably weigh 25 or 30 pounds, and something had thrown it with force from some, I don't know from how far away it was, but thrown it with enough force it struck the tree about 4 feet off the ground, and we could see the dent in the tree where it hit and fell. So, and then the next morning, we found the footprints of this creature as it crossed the road in the mud just a little ways outside of our camp. And I actually made a cast of one of those footprints. So ever since then, I've been going back to that place quite regularly. Matter of fact, besides my friend Brian, who's been there several times with me, you and Mark from the Livewire channel are the only people I've taken with me to this area. And that's why I've told both of you guys, asked you to not disclose the exact location because, I'm still investigating that area. We'll put it that way.
Right, you don't want people going there and scaring whatever it is off or whatever?
Well, I've been around doing this long enough. I've seen what happens if you have a place, for lack of a better word, you call a hot spot, or where there's ongoing activity. Word gets out pretty soon. You'll have several different people going down in there. And the area I'm talking about the only time I run into people if I'm down there looking around is like during deer season. Like right now, I wouldn't go down there at all because it's rifle season. And but I go down there in the summer and early fall and stuff, like you and I went down there, was in the fall. And you just, during those times, you just don't see anybody, hardly ever. So it's a good place to look into things like that.
And you also had a rock hit a tree. Was that soon after? That was with you and Brian, right?
Yes, that was with me and Brian. That was that one time. Now earlier in that evening, we were hiking. That kind of trail that you and I hiked up, where when you and I got there and it was dark, we hiked up that road.
Yeah.
Okay, you remember when we went over the top of that, it goes down into that bottomland on the other side where we saw somebody had set a tent up there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, as you go over that ridge, if you remember, there's like beside the road, a bank that goes up. Something was throwing pebbles at us from on the other side of that bank. And I remember, that was before the big rock was thrown against the tree. So we found that, curious, but it was like, could those be rolling down the hill? Could those be what? And then we figured out, no, something's on the other side of that bank in those trees, like tossing pebbles over at us. And I remember when we kept, we shined the flashlights up there, we couldn't see anything. And Brian, just on a whim, I don't know what he was thinking, he reached down and picked up a rock of his own and threw it back. And I remember telling him, we both have a laugh about this now when we talk about it, but I told him, I said, if that's a Bigfoot up there, that might about be a good idea to throw a rock back at him. So, but after he did that, there were no more pebbles thrown from the woods there. So, make of that what you will. But later in the night, it was pretty serious when that big rock. Now, it obviously was not trying to hit us with the big rock because it bounced it off the tree just outside of camp, which, seeing the size of the rock, I'm very happy that it wasn't trying to hit us with that, or we'd have been in some serious trouble.
Now, and you stayed the rest of the night after that?
Yeah, it was after midnight when the big rock hit. Now, we didn't go back to sleep. We built the fire up and stayed awake till the next day. And when morning came is when we went out and hiked down the road, and just outside of camp we found the footprints and the one that I made the cast of.
And that's on video, right? That's the one that you're scooping the water out of?
Oh, no. The video there, that was fall of 2019. That was another deal. Now, the one that I'm telling about now, that happened in 2003, the rock throwing incident. I've been going down there ever since then. Sometimes Brian goes with me if he can get off work, and if he can't, I go down there and I stay. I camp by myself in that area. So
now, the night that we arrived, it was really dark. And do you remember the splashing sounds we kept hearing down in we were just above a creek, and there was like splashing sounds. I thought that was maybe just running water, but it sounded like something was splashing around in it.
Yeah, and it could have been either. I'm not definitive about that. I mean, it could have been just the gurgling of the stream as it ran over the rocks, and it could have been something walking across it. I think you heard that better than I did. So you were down closer to the creek, if I'm remembering correctly.
I think so. I don't know if it was on the video or not, but we made.
But yeah, it was dark. You got an idea of very quickly how remote that area is, for sure.
Yeah, it's the most remote area I've been to.
Yeah, my camera just went off.
Really?
Can you still see me?
You're frozen.
Okay, well, I'm activating my camera again and just see if that brings me. Okay, I should be back now.
That's fine.
No. Well, we can talk anyway. I'll get the camera back going.
Oh, yeah. So, the first night, I think I was out pretty early. Well, God, it was late when we got there anyway. So I was asleep, I don't know, probably around midnight or something, taking a wild guess. And then the next morning is when you heard the whoop, right? The first morning. Right.
So, yeah, we got there. I think what was it, about 11 o'clock at night when we got there? I mean, it was late. Yeah, I woke up, and of course, you were sleeping in a tent, and you've seen how I sleep. I just put a cot out there to get me up off the ground and sleep. And basically, you remember how cold it was. So what would wake me up is when it started getting really cold, I would wake up from that and go put some more wood on the fire. And that was every probably 2 or 3 hours during the night. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, I was up putting some wood on the fire. You were snoring, man. You were pretty loud in your tent. And yeah, just outside. This was the loudest, closest vocalization I think I've ever heard that I can attribute to, I will say, a probable Sasquatch. And the only reason I say probable is I consider every vocalization unless I see a Bigfoot making the vocalization, it's a probable.
Right.
Okay, it was an unidentified vocalization. It's very close to camp, and it was a really loud, like wah, like that. And I mean, it was loud enough. I mean, the you know, you felt it. It was loud, and then I yelled at you. I said, Cornell, Cornell, and of course you're just snoring, and I was picking up sticks and throwing them at your tent, trying to wake you up. And I heard whatever that was moving off through the brush away from camp. And I got a funny thing to tell you regarding that and your snoring. I'm reading a book right now by a guy I met at the recent, well, I met him back in 2001 at the Texas Bigfoot conference in Jefferson, Texas, named Jerry Heston. And I ran into him a couple of weeks ago at Colgate at the Soggy Bottoms Bigfoot Festival. And he's got a book that I'm reading, and part of it, he's talking about a place they're researching that his partner there was snoring real loud, and he thought it might have been invited or attracted the Bigfoot to come close to their camp. So you might have inadvertently attracted him close.
Yeah, he's probably curious as to what the hell I was.
Yeah, because man, you snored loud. I mean, but I didn't go back to sleep. I mean, it was very loud, very close, and then to hear it walking off back into the to the woods in the area toward across the road from where we were was very clear.
There's nothing else it could have been, really, right?
Like I said, I didn't see it,
Right.
but I don't know what else it could have been. We were the only people down there, and that vocalization was. I mean, I tried to imitate it, but that's not very good. It was not a person that made that.
Right.
And it was not a bird. It was not an owl. We heard a lot of owls there. I mean, we know what an owl sounds like.
Yeah.
And there's different species. I mean, you got barn owls down there. You got screech owls. You got the great horned owl. And I'm very familiar with those owl sounds. So yeah, if you were asking me if I was pretty sure that was a Sasquatch, I put that on my pretty sure opinion right there.
And then there's a part in the video I showed you, and I haven't spoke to you about it yet, but you're talking about your book, and we walk over a spot that seems like something has just like ran across the trail in mud, and then it had dried again. Did you look at that close? I mean, it looked like footprints to me.
Yeah, it's hard. I can't really make it out. It's one of those. It could be. They would be old if it was.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to tell just looking at the video. Just like taking pictures of a footprint on the ground. They really a lot of times don't do them justice unless they're just really clear. But I mean, I could see what you were talking about.
Yeah, even that footprint, when I was taking a video of it, it's almost like it's not in 3D. When you're there, it's in 3D and you can actually see it, but when you're taking a photograph.
Well, the footprint that you found, and that's what people that are watching this, not being there and seeing it, you remember how rocky that was. I mean, you just don't find footprints in that rocky soil, except where you found that there was like some sand over the rocks there, and it had left the impression in that. Which, I mean, it was a humanoid looking footprint for sure. Yeah,
someone was being a smartass and read it and said something like, "Oh, there are dinosaurs down there," because it looks like a V, like a dinosaur footprint with 3 toes. But when you actually got down close, you could see the human-like toe prints at the front.
Right. Yeah. It's so hard to tell on just a picture like that.
Yeah.
But then the next morning, we were there 2 nights, and the bigger part of 2 days. We both heard the vocalizations the second morning. I think you heard them first, if I remember right.
Yeah.
You called my attention to them.
And this is another thing. I never thought to get my phone out and record it, and it's going on for like 15 minutes. And I never once thought, grab my phone and record this. So
you would have. So are you still there?
Yeah. So I'm like, when people ask you, when people ask people, well, did you get a picture or did you get a recording? I mean, I never even thought about it. And, well, at first I thought it was a bird, but then you're like, that doesn't sound like a bird, any bird I've heard. So maybe that's why I didn't. I can't remember.
Well, that was very similar to the type of whistling that me and Brian had heard back in 2003 there.
Yeah.
And I've heard that whistling before, more at a distance, but that was in closer proximity. Really haunting type of whistle. But you're talking, people talk about, why didn't you get a picture? Why didn't you get that? I mean, hindsight's 20/20, but when you're there, those whistling noises that we were hearing were very sporadic. I mean, it's not like you can say, okay, we're going to hear a whistle or a whoop right here, so let's have our recording equipment ready. Unless you just had something set up that was just recording solid through that time, it's difficult to get that stuff. As anybody that's tried to get them knows that.
And the thing about this whistle was it was getting answered across, like it seemed to be down there, right, where we were fishing, somewhere around there. That's where it sounded like it was coming from.
Yeah. Well, there was the one coming from
behind my tent.
Below us. We were up. We were about partially up the hill there on the campsite we was at. There was one coming from below us, then the other sounded like it was from across the creek from us. So yeah, they were, whatever it was, they were communicating with each other. Is my impression.
Huh.
So what's your impression of the area we were?
Oh, that was great. I was a little freaked out at first, but I can't wait to go down again.
Yeah. It's all and here's the thing. It's not like every time you go down there, something happens. I've been down there a lot of times with my friend Brian. A lot of times, just by myself, and most of the time it's just a camping trip. Nothing happens,
right?
And that's, and there's the fortunate times when you get a vocalization. I've never seen anything in that area. Now, I've seen the evidence and heard the evidence, but that is the area that I was, like I said, I was led down there because the person on the horse had that sighting. Now, as far as footprint evidence, the footprints that me and Brian found and I made the cast of were not especially big. I mean, they were just over 12 inches long, but they were pretty wide. They were that kind of what you think of when you think of a Bigfoot track, that wide, flat print.
Yeah.
Now, last year in the fall of 2019, we found those tracks and measured that one down there was, just under 18 inches long. I'm still trying to get my mind around the size of whatever left that would be.
The one we found?
No. The one that me and Brian found in 2019 in the fall.
Oh. I wonder.
So that.
I mean, if there's hunting and stuff up there, I find it strange that if there was Sasquatch in the area, that they would come up around that area, because we saw hunters. I mean, in the woods and stuff.
Well, yeah, but they were getting ready for deer season.
Oh.
Like I was telling you, when it's not, and in my view on these creatures, I don't believe they stay in one place. Any large animal or any animal of any kind, if they're staying in one place consistently, they're going to leave a mountain of evidence, like, if they're in the area. I think these creatures are very nomadic, and they move around to the areas where there's the least of human traffic at the time. And when it's not a hunting season, then, you may run into somebody rarely, but I've been down there many times by myself that nobody comes down in there. And you notice yourself, you get away from the trail up in the woods, it's very dense. It would not be hard for something to hide.
No. Plus, it has it can just keep retreating. It'd be like the Russians in the Eastern Front that would just keep going deeper into the woods,
Right. So, something that's that, and I believe these creatures are, and I refrain from calling them animals, because I think if they were, and anybody that knows me knows my kind of opinions on this, if they were just an undiscovered ape or just an animal, I don't think they could be this elusive. Right. You know, these are whatever they are intelligent enough to know that, you know, human contact probably wouldn't be in their best interest, and you know, they try to avoid us for the biggest part. That's my view on it.
We just have to look at Mark's experiences, how fast they are, and
right,
how
yeah,
they almost act creepy. Like, you know,
well,
the evidence
I think,
is collected.
you know, again, we've talked about this. I've spoke with Mark about it. You know, I think there's a very real chance that if Mark didn't have children there, he may never even been aware of these things' presence. I think they would just pass through and not even been a deal. I think they're curious about the children.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what, you know, is so scary to Mark. And you know, it'd concern any parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they seem to be content with hanging out at the edge of the woods and you know, watching once in a while, you know.
Yeah.
So
that'd be unnerving, you know.
No, yeah, absolutely. You know, like, you know, Mark and I was talking about the other day, you know, if I lived there where he does and didn't have little children around and was seeing these things, I would consider myself very fortunate. But, you know, when you got small children in the equation, you know, you got to wonder what the intentions of these things would be. Are they benevolent, or would they run off with the kid if they had the chance? You know, we just don't, you know, and that's not something any parent would want to take a chance on.
No. Yeah. So that was basically it. I could have had a Bigfoot encounter and I don't even know it, but that was definitely, if that was that whistle, if that was a Bigfoot, that was the first ever encounter I've had.
Right.
You know, I've never.
And most encounters, or a large part of them that I've taken reports are of vocalizations or a footprint find or such as that.
Huh. Yeah. So, yep, I made a movie about it. It's up on my site. Now, anything else we want to report on the trip?
On you and my trip, mine and your trip.
Yeah, the only other thing I think happened was that time there was things falling from way up in the rocks, and we couldn't figure out what it was, but it could have been squirrels. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, you never know. I mean, I've heard things from up on top of that cliff. That's a very rocky cliff. So I mean, yeah, you don't know. It could have been deer or, like you say, squirrel or something like that. We couldn't see it. So all we know is there's something alive moving around up there. So, you know.
Yeah. So.
Well, you got to see your first cottonmouth water moccasin.
Oh yeah.
Now, you know, I got to say this to people listening. So anyway, I called Cornell over. We're down there fishing, and at the creek, and this water moccasin, we call them cottonmouth, down here, swam off in the water, and Cornell looks at it and goes, "Can we eat it?"
Yeah, I was hungry.
Yeah, I was like, "Yeah, go right in and get it," you know. Yeah, I'll leave those guys alone. They're kind of ill-tempered, you know, and you would not want to get a bite by a cottonmouth that far from a hospital for sure.
Would it kill you?
Well, everybody, you know, different people react different to venom. I mean, the cottonmouth have a powerful hematoxin, which breaks down the blood cells and such. The closest relative of the cottonmouth is the copperhead. Now, the copperhead's venom is not nearly as potent as a cottonmouth.
Oh.
Matter of fact, I got a friend that's a doctor, and he says copperhead bite, he gives a tetanus shot and watches the patient for a while to see if he needs to administer antivenom, because antivenom, a person can have a bad reaction to that and do a lot of damage. Now, on the other hand, if you get a bite, you get a bite by a cottonmouth, you need to get to the doctor pretty quick, because they've got a more potent venom than a copperhead does. and it could be potentially fatal.
Wow.
So and there's timber rattlers down there a lot too. And I don't mess with them. If I see them, I just, leave them alone and go the other direction. I don't go out of my way to hit them with a stick or anything. Just, let them have their space.
So, do you want to go into your recent encounter?
Yeah, and this, for people that are wondering why I am just now speaking about this, is when this happened, I told Cornell right off the bat about it, and I promised him that when the first person that I publicly told about it would be him on his show. So here it is. And it was a very brief encounter, and the clearest one I've ever had. And it was in the Kiamichi Mountains, not in the exact place that Cornell and I went on our camp trip. I was going to a different spot, and it was later in the evening. I just got there, was getting my things out of my truck. And at first I looked up kind of across this creek. I always try to camp by a creek, and it was getting just almost dark. There was still a little bit of light, and there's a place in the trees above me that there was a little ray of sunlight coming through. And at first I thought it was shining, kind of illuminating a dark, like a tree stump is what I thought at first. It was kind of in between these trees. Trying to describe this, it's very thick vegetation, and there's a little spot, and I'm like, well, hey, there's a tree stump, and it wasn't that big, which is why it didn't, disturb me or anything. It was probably, I'd say, 3.5, 4 feet tall at the most. And I went ahead and I looked back up, and it's still there, and I could see it was a upright figure, though it was short, and it seemed to be kind of a blackish gray in color. And my first thought was, that's not a tree stump, that's something standing there. My first thought was am I looking straight at like a wild pig or something that's standing straight on instead of to the side? And I was staring at it, and this didn't last that long, but as I'm staring, I could see the face. It was a humanoid type figure, and the face was darker than the rest of it. And when I kind of focused in on it, it just turned and stepped back into the trees. And I think what I saw was a juvenile Sasquatch right there. And it, like I said, it wasn't, you think about you think you're going to see a Bigfoot, you're thinking something 7 to 8 feet tall. And here this was up there in the brush across the creek. I'd say it was about 25 yards from me. And that's pretty close. But like I say, the light, it was starting to get dark, and there was still just a little bit of sunlight. At first I thought it was a tree stump that had, was just there. And then, it stepped off the step. It wasn't a path, but it stepped into the deeper brush. And of course I was in an area where you and I there's no cell signal whatsoever, but this area was in a place that I did have some cell signal, and I actually got on the phone with Mark and could get enough signal to reach out. And I was telling him, I was like, man, I think I just saw a juvenile Sasquatch up here. And then I started hearing some vocalizations up in the woods from 2 different areas up there in the direction where this creature stepped back into the brush, and they were coming from 2 different areas up there. Like 2 of them were calling to each other. And I kind of jokingly would say to Mark later, and I may be right, I said maybe it was the parents of this little guy scolding him because he got careless and was seen. But anyway, if I'm describing, and like I said, this was just, sighting didn't last more than like 6 or 8 seconds maybe from seeing it, hey, that's a tree stump, no, that's not a tree stump, to then it's stepping back into the concealment of the brush. But it was about 3.5 to 4 foot tall from what I could best describe, and it had kind of a grayish black hair on its body, and the face was of a darker. It's hard to tell color, but it was darker than the rest of it. The face was, and if I determined it was bipedal because it turned to the side and stepped off, so it was not a quadruped. So
now, did you go in after it?
The only thing I can surmise that it was a juvenile Bigfoot.
Huh.
So, and it's one of those things I've been looking all these years, and that's the clearest I've ever got a sighting of one of these creatures.
Well, that's your only sighting, isn't it?
Well, I've had something back in the river bottoms below Grand Lake when I was investigating down there in 2000, I believe. So it's 20 years. This was 20 years ago. A couple of police officers had an encounter with the Sasquatch down there, face-to-face encounter.
Wow.
And I was down there camping with one of them, and we got some eye shine in the brush outside of our camp at night. And honestly, I thought it was a deer, and he was still freaked out from when him and the other guy had seen it. The other fellow would not go back down in there at this time. He just wanted nothing to do with it. Matter of fact, the first time I went down there, they still had some of their stuff that they had left down there when they just bailed out. But I thought, well, I'm just going to walk around it and scare it up. It's a deer. And he said, as I was walking around, he said, "Dave, get out of there." It stood up, and he said he could see it. I could not see it where I was at, but it ran by me through the brush, and I saw a flash of something go by, but I couldn't, it wasn't anything I could tell what it was. But that would have been the only other time that I, could have. I seen a flash of brown go by me in the woods that time, and that's all I saw, and it was moving incredibly fast.
Now, this juvenile Bigfoot you saw, did you go in after it or anything?
No, it was across the creek, and it was, it was very, very thick brush where it was. As a matter of fact, if it hadn't just been positioned out to the side of this tree, or these trees where it was, I would not have even seen that. It was almost like it got careless or something. But no, I didn't go across there that evening at all.
And did you stay over?
Oh yeah, I stayed the whole night.
Oh, because mom and dad were definitely close if it was that small.
Yeah, but they didn't stay around very long after that. There was the vocalizations. The vocalizations consisted of these kind of whoops, but they weren't like a forceful whoop type noise I heard when you and I were camping. They were more lower and subdued sounding, but they were clear, and they were coming from two different locations pretty close, but that they went away pretty quick, and I didn't hear anything else the rest of the night.
It's funny because I was listening to a podcast. Do you know that guy Tom Green, the comedian from Canada? You know Tom Green?
Yeah.
Yeah, he married Drew Barrymore and stuff. Well, at the minute he's going around America in a Dodge, that, like a van.
I've watched a couple of those episodes. I'm kind of envious.
Yeah,
that would be neat to be able to do that. If I ever was fortunate enough to end up with a lot of money like him, I would probably do the same thing. I would, I'd be out in the mountains and stuff all the time. But unfortunately, I have to come back and go to work, right?
Right.
So.
But the funny thing about him is, like you're a researcher and you know about these things, so you're looking for them. But he's like going into these forests and stuff, and he's traveling all around Texas, and he could be having all of these encounters and he wouldn't even know it. He's not looking for it. He would hear a vocalization and he wouldn't put two and two together, or he would see something and not look twice.
Right.
And just think it was a tree stump. So that's where like a lot of people say, I've been in the woods my whole life and I haven't seen anything. That's because you're not really looking for it, because these things you have to.
And that is true, and that can be a plus or minus on both sides. People that go into the woods to look for deer or turkey or something like that, their mindset is not on being alert and looking for the Bigfoot that's very well concealed in the woods, unless you have a situation like Kerry Arnold, who has Bigfoot Odyssey, had where the one walked right up toward him when he was turkey hunting down the Mississippi. His is a terrifying account, which he shared many times. But most of the time, if you're not looking, you don't. And at the same time, if you got a person that, and I've seen this before, you take a person in the woods and they've got Bigfoot on the brain, they can imagine it at the same time. So there's, you know, it can go both ways. So, you know, you definitely want to see what's there, but you don't want to convince yourself something's there that's not. But yeah, like, you know, deer hunters and stuff, they're looking for deer. Unless one of these things just reveals itself, chances are you'll never know they're there.
Yeah. Well, did you hear the researcher on, I think it was last week on Kerry's show? He was talking about the hair, and that's how it was able to blend in so well, because the hair was kind of like translucent?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I heard him talking about it, but I'm not familiar with that. Yeah. He's apparently apparently discovered something that I haven't. You know, I think I would love to see that. I really would. I listened to a lot of that podcast. Very, very interesting interview. Now, the creature that I saw, it wasn't blended in like that. It was kind of a grayish black in color.
By itself.
And most of the ones that I've seen, or not seen, but heard other people talk about, the most common color that I've heard described is either black or kind of a reddish brown that's reported down here in southeast Oklahoma. But no, I'm not. I don't know about that. That's something new to me as far as that. That's pretty scary too. I mean, if something had a translucent type hair that they could blend in like that, wow, you know. But
it doesn't make sense that they're jet black either, though, does it?
I would love. I don't know that gentleman that Kerry was interviewing, but I tell you what, if I ever had the opportunity to meet with him and see that hair, I would love to.
Yeah. But a lot of people report them being jet black. Is that because they're nocturnal? You know what I mean?
No, I don't know. I mean, they're down on the Little River that runs through southeast Oklahoma down there. I'd heard a report of somebody seeing one that was black, and the way he described its size, and this is terrifying as far as the description. He said somebody asked him how big it was. He said it was like a Brahma bull standing on its hind legs if it was black. And I'm like, man, that's massive. Can you imagine something like that? But as far as hair color, I mean, take a black bear. I mean, you got black bears that are jet black. You got black bears that are a cinnamon color. You've even got black bear up in Canada that once in a while will be an albino or whatever they call a ghost bear. I mean, I would think they're just like other creatures. There's some with different colors of hair and stuff, and it may be a regional thing. You know, perhaps the Sasquatch from one area of the states tend to be a different color than from, say, the Pacific Northwest or somewhere like that. But I have had several reports from my part of the country of them being reddish brown or black. Now, the one up in the river bottoms below Grand Lake, that was kind of a reddish brown from what these officers described to me.
Were they on duty at the time, or were they all just?
Oh, no, they were camping. This is it's Grand Lake, and I'm giving away this location because I don't go there anymore. It's a long ways from my house, and if somebody else is researching that area, maybe this is information that they'll find useful. But down below the dam of Grand Lake, there's a lot of trails through those mountains. I mean, it's mountainous down there that people have ride their four-wheelers and camp and stuff. And it was down there. They weren't on duty at all. They were just camping, and they had been target practicing early that evening, and they had stopped. I don't remember if they were preparing dinner or what. It was after dark, and they could hear something on the other side of this dirt bank in the woods. and they thought it was an armadillo, and they both thought, well, we're going to go shoot it. And they went walking around the edge of that bank, and what they had been hearing was this Bigfoot. It was on its belly, and it was scooting up the other side of that bank and looking over the top at them, watching them what they're doing. And when they went around, it stood up right in front of them. And they said it was around 7 feet tall. And I asked the officer that I actually was interviewing, I said, well, what did you do? And I'll keep my language better. I'll just say he said I screamed like a girl and ran.
Really?
Except he used the B word to describe a girl. He said I screamed like a girl and ran. And his friend, he said, kind of froze. He said he grabbed his friend by the back of the collar and pulled him backwards. Which and I said, did you think about shooting it? And he said, no. He said it's so big. He said he said he wasn't confident in the effect his sidearm would have on it.
And so, did he say what the face looked like? That always fascinates me.
No, I don't recall him really describing the face. Just that it stood up, humanoid in front of him. He said around 7 feet tall, and they skedaddled. They left all their camping supplies and everything down there, got in their 4-wheel drive, and got out of there. And I ended up investigating there for over a period of about 6 months. And that area is about 225 miles from my house. So. I don't make it up there anymore. It's been several years since I've been up there.
That's like me going to New York. That's a hike. The hike thing gets me because, I mean, this room is like 10 feet tall, and some people say, talk about encounters that are 10 feet tall, and I just cannot imagine something the height of this room. I mean, that would just be, I would probably just faint.
Well, when it's things out of the ordinary, extraordinary like that, you can say how you would react during that, but we don't really know until we are there. I was a police officer for a long time too, and people talk about, well, if there was a live fire situation, if you were in danger, how would you act? You can train for those things and hope that it does, but you really don't know 100% until that thing happens. So how would you act if a Sasquatch come walking right towards you? You say, well, I would faint, or I'd be cool, or that. You don't know till it happens.
I might be the bravest guy in the world.
Or you may just, like when I saw that smaller creature here, well, it wasn't that. I mean, it was very recent. That. Yeah. It was in the late summer. I looked at it. It was gone. I listened to the vocalizations, and I remember just after that, like going, man, I think I actually saw one of these things. It just kind of soaked in. You take it in when you see it. I wasn't in any danger. It wasn't coming toward me. It was just kind of out there looking back at me. But it soaks in, and then you're like going, wow, I think I've seen one of these things now.
Your heart wasn't pounding into your chest or anything?
It was one 7-8 foot tall, and it was coming across the creek toward me. I imagine I might have just left it all out there. I would have been trying to get away. But, yeah, that's... Now, you're just talking about something 10 feet tall. Now, as I've spoken to other people about stuff. I've seen that casino footage, and that creature that was in that footage was just over 9 feet tall. We were able to measure that due to the height of the light pole right beside it.
Wow.
So, yeah. So that's, seeing something like that coming towards you. I mean, my goodness, that would be terrifying.
Yeah, I've always equated them like a cross between a grizzly bear and a werewolf.
Werewolf.
Yeah, as terrifying as a werewolf and as big as a grizzly bear.
Oh yeah. How big is a werewolf? I've never seen one.
I don't know.
I'm kidding. I don't believe in werewolves. So
well, you've got Dogman.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not. That's above my pay grade. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I investigate Bigfoot, Sasquatch.
Yeah. So
That's
when is the
I
best
know
time to
there's.
go down to
I mean,
Oklahoma?
I met a gentleman at the that Bigfoot conference at Colgate a few weeks ago. Give a shout out to him. Has the uh, red dirt cryptids, and he's actually investigated that dogman thing. His name's Brian. Give a shout out to Brian there. The red dirt cryptid investigation. I'll even show his card up there. So
Red
he
Dirt
gave me that.
Cryptids?
Yeah, the red dirt cryptid investigations. And he's got a YouTube channel. Well, and this fella, he teaches at one of the community colleges or something up in the northwest part of the state. And anyway, he told me, he said he's investigated the whole dogman thing. And like I say, that's not my area at all. So, but he also he investigates Bigfoot sightings as well.
I just subscribed.
I usually give a shout out to my friend Cornell up there in Boston, but I'm talking to you, so I don't have to do that now.
Did you meet Kyle? Lyle, what's his name again? Lyle.
Oh, I met down there Lyle Blackburn. I met him. He's wrote several books dealing especially with the I'll just call it the Southern Sasquatch. Go into that. He's wrote some really good stuff about the Falk monster down there around Boggy Creek and stuff. And but anyway, yeah, he spoke at that. He spoke. Jerry Heston, who wrote a book. I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, he wrote a book about hunting apes in America. My Life as a Bigfoot Hunter by Jerry Heston. That's a good book because he goes into some areas that he's researched that I've spent a lot of time in, like a place he calls Area X, which I'll leave that confidential too because the group that he works with is still doing active investigation there, and they've done a lot of neat stuff there. They call the words they use the term for the Bigfoot. They call them a wood ape is the term that they call them.
I've heard of that.
So, but yeah, that place Area X, man. That's in Jerry's book. He describes some of their goings on down there, and it's really neat. And that's a lot more remote than the area that you and I were at. You go into a remote area, and then you get on these trails, and you take another couple hours to get down where they're at. I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere.
Huh.
So yeah, where you and I were is remote, but it's nothing compared to this place.
Yeah, I felt like we were kind of on the edge too. I mean, when you could see people driving down the trail.
We were off the beaten path and way away from town, but I mean, I think the nearest house to us, and there's very few houses out that far, but I think there's a house a couple of miles up the road from where we were at, from where we came in. But if you go further down that road where we was at, over that top, there's nothing till you get I looked at it on Google Maps, and it just goes for a long ways that direction. We were on the edge of the serious wilderness, So, but anyway, I wrote this down. We talked about the fictional book that I wrote called The Champé, which I'm going to say, hey, thanks to everyone out there that's bought it and have, written me good reviews on it and enjoyed it. I really appreciate it. But I'm working right now on a nonfiction book that deals primarily with the investigations that I've taken part in over the last 20 plus years. And today I started a chapter on a Mark down there in the Pushmataha County. Going to document. He gave me permission to write on his story, so I've started the chapter on that one, and I just finished the chapter on the area that you and I were in, and that one I started that chapter with going there first back in 2002 or so, and ending with you and I's camp trip there. So.
Oh, I get a shout out.
I'm sorry.
I get a shout out.
Oh yeah. I talk about hearing the vocalization, you snoring through it, and then hearing the other the next night, and all that, So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mentioned you, and of course a month prior to that, I took Mark and his oldest son Austin down into that area as well. So.
Now, I haven't seen any updates on Mark's channel. Can we talk about that? Is he still around? And
oh yeah, I was. I didn't speak to him today, but we were texting back and forth. Oh yeah, we're still communicate.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hoping to, and I told him I was going to keep in touch because I'm sharing his story and my investigation into it. And I told him, I said, I want to make sure I do it, justice. And I want to document it from when they first started having these encounters to when he finally, got just enough and moving, back to Arkansas. So, yeah, I want to, I'll confer with him back and forth as I'm writing to make sure I'm not leaving anything out, and, doing justice to, the events that's happened since, last year or this time.
Now,
so
is he far from where we went? Would he be able to come up and hang out with us, or is he too far away? Or does he not?
You mean if we went back where we camped? You mean?
Yeah.
Well, Mark, it's funny because Mark, as far as miles, he's about the same distance from that place as I am.
Oh.
Because I went back there afterwards, and I drove that road all the way through the mountains down to where the town where Mark lives, and I'm about from my house, little over 60 miles from where we were camping, and Mark is right at 55, 60 miles from his house too. So it's about the same. He just comes in. I come in from the west. He comes up from the south to get there.
So I'm thinking, when would be a good time to go down again? When it gets warmer?
Yeah. I would wait till. Usually, I start going down there, weather permitting, in March, because we want to make. You definitely don't want to. I don't even go in the deep woods right now because deer season, and I don't want to get accidentally shot by somebody. Speaking of deer season, my daughter went deer hunting behind my house here, just about 300 yards behind where I'm sitting. And I went down there with her. We're sitting in the deer house, and I built a house up on stilts where you can lower the windows and wait for deer. She got her first deer yesterday.
Really?
Yep, sure did. And I was sitting there right there beside her when she got it. So that was exciting.
Now, did she field dress it and stuff right there?
I'm sorry?
Did she cut it open and stuff and got it right there?
No. No, her fiance came over, and they took it over to his father has all the stuff there at his shop. They hang the deer up and all that. So they went over there and they dressed it out, and that's not very far from my house at all.
Huh.
So yeah, it was exciting. She got a doe. They're my kids asking, should I get a doe tag or a buck tag? I said, well, are you hunting for meat or just so you can stick something's head on the wall and say, look what I shot? And they're like, no, we don't care about the trophy stuff. We just want the meat. And I said, well, get a doe tag. There's a lot more of them out there than there are the bucks. So, and that's exactly what happened. Doe came out there, and so she's stocked up on deer meat for the year.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on my bowstring to come back. I had to special order it. It's going to be like another 4 weeks, and by the time it gets back here, the season will be over. So,
Uh, but yeah, I don't. I mean, I've got a video coming up on YouTube. It's going to come out at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning about a Bigfoot sighting that a man and his wife that I've actually met face to face and talked to about it over by Honubby, where they have the Bigfoot Festival, and there's all those sightings around.
yeah.
Close to that area, they were trying out one night this month, actually November 2020, a new infrared monocular and caught sight of one of these creatures in the woods. I've got that video coming out in the morning. So, well, of course, when people see our interview, it's not going to be tomorrow morning. It'll already be up on my website.
Oh, no, was it recording this monocular thing, or was it just for?
No, the monocular. It's not one of them FLIR recorders like Mark's got. It's just an infrared monocular. It doesn't have the recording capabilities.
Oh. Oh.
He actually brought it and showed it to me. I mean, it's neat for just looking, but no, it's not. It's not like the ones that have recording capabilities.
Huh. Well, the band's about to start downstairs. And the sound, the sound travels right up through this table, right through the microphone. I actually tried using Mark's microphone, but it's too sensitive. You would need a soundproof room for it. Yeah, it's that sensitive.
Speaking of new microphones, I just got a new microphone last week for my video camera. It's got a shock mount and one of those wind muffs. It looks like a dead cat or dead. I call it a dead rat. It looks like a dead rat. Over it now, you'll see my last couple of videos. The sound is you're not going to have any trouble hearing the voice on it. This thing picks up very sensitively.
Huh.
So there should be an improvement in the sound quality of my videos now for anybody that has complained in the past. But keep in mind, I'm learning as I go. You know, I'm still fairly new to the videography stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how well this is going to come out because I'm working on a new computer tonight and the sound card isn't as good as the laptop sound card, I guess. I'm not sure. But, you know, when I was testing it earlier, it didn't sound as good, so I don't know how this is going to actually record. But
you're coming in loud and clear on this end.
Yeah, I've got two Shure SM58s to my right and left, so, you know, so it does the stereo thing. And they're really good mics, so I hope so.
Yeah, SM58 is not a condenser mic. But it should do good. Yeah, for anybody that's watching this, my trade that I make a living at, I own a music store, so I actually know when he says SM58 Shures, I'm very well acquainted with those microphones.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, Dave, thanks for coming on, and thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for sharing it here first. And I hope to get down there again soon.
Well, I told you I would, man. I'm a man of my word. So now I can share it with anybody else that wants to hear it. But like I said, when it happened, I told you, we talked about it, and I said when I do make that encounter public, it will be on your show first. I haven't even shared that on my channel yet, so you got to hear it first.
Now,
so
are you recording on your end too?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you just said.
Are you recording on your end too?
No, not that I know of.
Oh, I should have told you to record as well, because then you could have just put it up on your channel too, you know?
No, man, this is all for you, man.
Yeah.
You on yours. I'll probably I've got a playlist on my channel for interviews, and when you get it up live on yours, I'll just put the link there to it as well. So
yeah,
you know,
I would usually do it tonight, but I'm going to hang out with the kids now, and that's the rest of it.
Okay.
I would usually work at it until it's done. I would just spend the whole night trying to get everything right and upload it, because you can actually put it up on there's a web service called Auphonic, and you send the file to that, and it cleans it up for you, and then it sends it back to you.
Right.
So anyway, that's boring to the audience. Well, thanks for coming on, Dave.
Yeah, looking forward to you getting back down here. Maybe everything will be more organized and go more as planned.
Yeah. I'm going to go to Oklahoma City this time, flying that way.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma City's only like an hour and a half drive from here.
Yeah.
It's actually a little over an hour from Ada, but to my house, it's like an hour and a half.
Yeah, the drive back down to Texas was harrowing because I went down the highways, and they're just so big. I mean, everything is just
You definitely. If you've got the option, drive into Oklahoma City for sure.
less hectic.
Oh yeah, a lot less.
All right, well, Dave. Well, have a good night, and thanks for coming on. And I'll keep in touch.
All right. See you later, man.
All right, talk to you soon, Dave.
All right. Bye.
Bye.